Have you ever heard a story that's just so wild, so incredible, that you really, really want it to be true? Well, today we're diving deep into one of the greatest legends of the American West. It's the story of a lost ancient Egyptian civilization. We're talking treasures, mummies, the whole shebang, found hidden away in the Grand Canyon. It's a tale that's gripped people for over a century. But it's also a masterclass in how a hoax works, and more importantly, why our brains are so eager to believe it.
So let's just start with the big, juicy question at the heart of it all. An Egyptian city in the Grand Canyon? I mean, really. The idea itself is just magnetic. It pushes past what we think we know about history. It suggests there are still huge, world-changing secrets out there, just waiting to be found. And that idea, that pull of the unknown, is incredibly powerful. And this is where it all began. Picture it, April 5th, 1909. You pick up the Arizona Gazette, and there it is, right on the front page. This wasn't some little footnote. It was a blockbuster headline promising discoveries that could completely rewrite history, linking ancient Egypt directly to the American Southwest. And the details were just incredible. The story wasn't about finding a few pots. No, it was about a massive, man-made cavern, supposedly big enough for 50,000 people. It was filled with mummies, copper weapons, gold artifacts, and strange hieroglyphics. There was even this mysterious statue that looked like a Buddha sitting right in the middle of it all. And here's the kicker, the part that made it all sound legit. The world-renowned Smithsonian Institution was supposedly backing the whole expedition. It was the perfect adventure story.
A perfect story. Maybe a little too perfect, you know? Because almost immediately, some people started to notice that it all seemed, well, a bit fishy. So let's look at how this supposedly groundbreaking discovery started to fall apart.
So get this, it only took 11 days for a rival newspaper to basically call them out. The headline they ran, "Looks like a Molehattan story," was the 1909 way of shouting fake news. See, this guy, Joe Molehattan, was a famous prankster back then, known for feeding newspapers completely made-up stories. And his go-to move? You guessed it, faking discoveries of Egyptian mummies in American caves. The timing and the topic were just too similar to be a coincidence. And you might be asking, why would a newspaper just print something like that? Well, you have to understand the era. This was the golden age of yellow journalism. The main goal wasn't always to report the facts, it was to sell more newspapers. And a wild story about a secret Egyptian city right in their backyard? That's a guaranteed bestseller. It was business. And sometimes the truth got left behind.
But okay, let's put aside the shady journalism for a minute. The story hits an even bigger, more fundamental wall. When you actually go looking for proof, there's nothing. Not a shred of evidence. Zero. Zilch. Nada.
And when you start digging, the whole thing just crumbles. The two main guys in the article, the explorer G.E. Kincaid and Professor S.A. Jordan, it seems they never existed. The Smithsonian, the supposed sponsor, they've said again and again that they have no record of anything like this, ever. And maybe most telling of all, for a discovery of this scale, there's not a single photograph, not one artifact. The entire story begins and ends with that one newspaper article from 1909.
So you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Case closed. But this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. For a lot of people, the total lack of evidence isn't a flaw. It's actually proof of a massive cover-up. The cover-up arguments sound pretty convincing at first. People point to landmarks in the canyon with names like Isis Temple or Tower of Ra and say, "See? Proof!" But the truth is, those names were given by a 19th century geologist who just thought the majestic formations deserved epic names from all world mythologies, not just Egyptian. Then there's the Forbidden Zone claim that the government cordoned off the area to hide the cave. In reality, the Park Service restricts access to areas all the time, either for public safety or to protect very real and very important Native American archaeological sites.
Okay, so this brings us to the real heart of the matter. The story is a hoax. The cover-up theories just don't hold up. So, why? Why is this story still around? Why has it refused to die for more than 100 years?
Well, the answer isn't buried in the Grand Canyon. It's buried deep inside our own heads. The reason this story is so sticky has everything to do with our psychology.
Here's the bottom line. Our brains are wired for stories. It's how we make sense of the world. A good narrative that grabs our emotions is way more powerful and memorable than a boring list of facts. We are literally built to believe in, remember, and share a good tale.
And because of that, our brains rely on these little mental shortcuts or heuristics. Think about it. If you had to stop and critically analyze every single thing you heard all day, you'd be completely exhausted. So our brain's default mode is just to believe. It's efficient. It helps us navigate the world. But that same shortcut can make us vulnerable to believing a story that just isn't true.
And man, this story checks all the boxes. It gives us that hit of wonder and mystery. It speaks to our inner Indiana Jones. The idea of a cover-up is especially powerful. It makes us feel like we're in on a big secret, that we're smarter than the so-called experts. And the more it gets repeated on TV shows, websites, you name it, the more familiar it becomes, and the more our brains start to accept it as true. So you take this century-old story, which was already super compelling, and you drop it into the 21st century. It found the absolute perfect environment to not just survive, but to thrive: the internet.
Now the story is everywhere, repackaged for the digital age. You see these YouTube videos with splashy titles like Just Found and Forbidden Cave. It's all designed to create a sense of urgency and mystery. It's the exact same sensationalism from 1909, just with clickbait titles instead of a newspaper headline.
And the modern retellings go all in on the conspiracy. The story isn't just about a discovery anymore, it's about the cover-up. It reframes the Smithsonian not as a group of scientists, but as a villainous organization hiding the truth from you. That narrative makes the story feel urgent and important, and it makes sharing it feel like you're fighting the power.
But here's the real shame in all of this. While everyone is busy chasing this fictional Egyptian story, we're completely overlooking the real history of the Grand Canyon. And honestly, the true story is way more fascinating. The Grand Canyon isn't some empty stage. People have lived there for at least 12,000 years. 11 different Native American tribes call that land their ancestral home. It's a deeply spiritual place. There are thousands of real archaeological sites to prove it. Ancient ruins, petroglyphs, artifacts. Now that is an amazing story of human history and endurance, and it's 100% true. So we end up back where we started. The legend of an Egyptian city feels exciting. It ticks all the boxes for a great mystery. But the real history of the canyon is just as incredible. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What's the difference between a good story and a true story? And when something feels so right in your gut, how do you know when to believe that feeling and when to take a step back and ask a few more questions?